All right, so what I'd like you to do, please, is to come in, start up a new project, call it prime number or whatever you'd like to call it, okay? And I've got it both on the board, so if people are watching the tape, that's not going to help them any. Or I've got it on the screen here. Again, I now have Camtasia for the Mac. I've got to watch what I'm saying because I'm taping, but I've got a rogue version. So I'm not sure how well it'll work or how long it will work. All right? But I'm hoping for the rest of the semester. So what I'd like you to do, and for right now, I'm just going to remove this, is I'd like you to build the interface that you see right now. Now look, if you would please, look up on the screen here. This is just a label, and it's not going to change. It says enter a number in the box. Okay? This is a text field. Underneath it, that's a button, and that's a label. Does all that make sense to people? So label, text field, button, label. Yes. That won't really matter. You can do it either way. But does all that make sense as far as what I'm asking you to create? Okay, and if you look over here, if I'm going to give you the code later and show you how I did it, but if you want to use the same names I did, of course, I already broke the rules I told you about. I just call that number. I should have really called it number text field, but I called it number. All right? When you click the button, I literally called, when I started to wire this up, okay, let me just show you right here. Maybe this will help. So when I started to wire this up, if you look up on the screen here, all right, number, again, is the text field. Result label is the label, all right? And once I wired up the button, I just call that button pressed. Does that make sense? Now you can call them whatever you want. The only thing is later, after you build this, when we go through the code that I put in, if you don't use the names that I've used here, again, number for the text field, result label for the label down here, and button pressed for your event that you're going to have. If you don't use those names, you're going to have to adjust your stuff accordingly in the code. Does that make sense? So what I'd like you to do is I'm just going to give you, I don't know, it's 3:17. Hopefully by 3:30 people can build this interface that's shown right there. It's pretty simple, and then wire it up. Is what I'm asking you to do make sense? No, you have a different file. Go back to main story. Don't worry about putting the code in here yet. Okay? So even if you get ahead, because I'd like to talk about some of the stuff that's in there as we go into it. All right? So I'm just going to keep the tape running. I'll give you about 10 minutes to build this. Yeah, go ahead.
want us to do the UI? You want us to
That's
wire
it.
all through?
No, we're gonna put the code in just a couple minutes, but I want to say a few things about it as we're going along. So, what's that?
Enter as a text field, and the two underneath are.
That's a text field. That's a label, and that's how you wire up the button. You don't type these in verbatim.
No, I'm just pulling
You wire them. So, control click from here to there, and that'll be, or from here to there, and that'll be result label. Control click from here to there, and that'll be number. Control click from here to there, and just put in button pressing for right now. And if you've got that done, that's all I want, where I want you to be for right now.
Jeff, how do you put more than one pane?
How do I put more than one pane in here?
Yeah, man, how do we get the?
To get this up,
Yeah.
you click that button right here. And if you still got a lot of other extra, if you have a lot of extra garbage on the screen, you can click these buttons over here, these three. This button right here, clicking that will either add this or remove this, all right? And this one that's over here, if you got junk over here, it'll remove it, all right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead. I'll click it, and I'll come back.
Now, you're not turning this in, but just so you know, I hope to get through this today. Then what I'm going to do when you come in here on Tuesday of next week, remember for the first hour, I've got to go to that Cognos training. So I'm going to have a picture for you of a little simple app I want you to build. Well, and I'll tell you the names I'd like you to use on it, and you can wire it up and see if you can put in the code. Then when I come back at 4, I'll go through and show you how I did it. And in the interim, the other thing I want to get into, now, again, I was in here on a Saturday, and I did print this out. I know a lot of you say it's hard to read from a PDF. It is for me, too. All right? But I'm not sure with IT ebooks, I think that's a valid site. Now, I would think that if what they're doing, if it was criminal, somebody would have closed them down. All right? But with this 800-page book, considering I already took a 400-page book and made 16 copies, I think if I take an 800-page book and make about 15 or 16 copies, people might get on my case for that. All right? I can ask my boss and explain the situation to her and see what she thinks. If she says, oh, go for it, then I'll go and run off copies. I'll come in here Saturday or Monday, and I'll run off copies of this stuff, and I'll take it over to the print guy. I don't have a problem doing that. All right? I'll see what he says.
I was just gonna buy it.
You can do that too.
It's only like $20, $17. I've been on Amazon with it.
I don't remember. I thought it was around 20, but I really don't remember, to be honest with you.
Like 20 or 30.
Let's see. I can look right now.
Tax and shipping and handling.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for my refund, and I'll give it.
It's if you buy it from the company that created it, A-Press itself, and you typically don't want to buy it from there because that's among the most expensive. But there it was 32. Going on to Amazon. Amazon has it. Wow, it's same price. No, it's actually more expensive there. It has $37.58 for it.
Jeff, question.
Yes. Yes, we're gonna be going over all these,
No, not those,
not those.
not those, up here in the window. In the window of your main storage.
All right, here, yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna be going through these.
Yeah.
It's all in chapter 3. This is for alignment, this is for pinning, so you're able to use auto layout, all right? This one will automatically try to resolve issues and stuff for you, and this one has to work with alignment. That's all in chapter 3, all right?
How'd you get the both of ours up again?
All right, the question was, how do you get both these windows up? If this one isn't showing, if you click the thing that looks like the 2 circles, that's the assistant editor, and it'll bring it up. All right? If you click it again, it'll remove it. Okay, the other thing is when it's up like this, you can click the X to remove it, if you want to do that too, if you don't want it anymore. All right? I will tell you, what I'm going to do is when I get done today, I'm going to go and these files have a tendency, the ones that I make on the Mac, to get real big real fast. So I've got to watch it. I'm going to make sure it's 3:28. I'm going to stop around 1:45, all right, and then give you a break. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to see how big that file is. If they're too big, they'll take over an hour to upload to YouTube. That really isn't fun. But the good news is it does it in the background, so I can just minimize it and go on to do other things. But it won't be out there till tomorrow. I'm hoping that the sound quality is okay, and I'm hoping that the visual quality is good. We'll see. All right? And hopefully you all realize this too when you come in here. So if I decide, you know what, I want that to be a little bit bigger, etc., I can do that if I want to. Now, there's ways that you can move all of this stuff around on the screen. The question got asked, if you'd all look up here for a second, these 4 buttons that are right here, notice if I put my mouse over them, of course it's not doing anything. It says align, and it says pin, and it says resolve auto layout issues, and it says resizing behavior. All right? And we're going to go through all those. They're all mentioned in chapter 3. Okay? The 2 that you're probably going to use most often are these 2, just so you know. The second one here that kind of looks sort of like a push pin or a stick pin with things on both sides, that one. If you click that, that's going to bring up your auto layout screen, and we're going to be going into that as we go on. All right? If you start dragging stuff all over the place, sometimes when you work with that stuff and you use the auto layout, you try to resolve some of your issues. Maybe you saw this at the beginning, and I still have some of it here. But when I first started here, everything that you saw here was all orange. And all that meant was there's some kind of an issue that the system didn't understand. To get almost all of that orange to go away, I clicked the button that's right here, all right? And basically what it did was it automatically resolved the issues for me as best it could. And we're going to get into all that stuff. All right? Has everybody got the interface built? And I take for granted that, telling you this, that it wasn't a problem, for example, to go right here and click on the text field, control, and drag. All right? And again, when you did that, it should have come up and looked like this. This is where, when you did this, you wanted it to say outlet, and you wanted it to say right here, number. Does that make sense? All right? And we're not putting any code directly associated with this. The only thing the code is directly associated with now is the button. All right? So that would be the first one. I'm going to cancel this because I've already got it in there. All right. Then for the button, same kind of thing. Click on the button, control, click, drag over here, and let go. Now over here, you should have changed this then. And it's not recognizing it right now because I already have it in there. That's why. But yours, when you brought it up, you should have had in there action. All right? And that's where you put button pressed. Okay, again, it's kind of funky because I've already got the stuff in there. All right? And then you do a similar thing with the label that was down here. Come on. You click on there, you control, and you drag up to here. All right, and again, it would have been an outlet. This is the one where you would have said result label and that you left everything else the way that it was. Okay, so let's take a look at the code. So what I'm supposing is right now, if you did what I asked you to do, and you didn't go any further, now if you went further, it's fine. But if you didn't get any further, if you look at what I've got on the screen right here, I'm supposing you've got lines 9, 11, 13, 15, 17. And you've got a curly brace here and a curly brace there. Now again, if you went on, you might have other stuff, and that's okay. All right? But I wanted to just take some time to go over it because what I'm trying to do is just keep beating the stuff into your heads. Now I'm going to give you an explanation, and it's going to be similar to the one I gave you last week, but when we go over chapter 3 from the book, you'll find, I'm sure, a better one than the one I'm giving you. All right? You'll notice that with these two variables that we put in, we know they're variables, we know they're IB outlets, so they're connected to the interface builder. They both have type weak, which is saying that we're going to let the system do our reference counting for us. They're variables. One is a UI text field that's named number. One is a UI label named result label. And what we're saying to the system is we want to make sure that these are going to be resolved at runtime. It does not like it without the exclamation point there. We're going to see that in chapter 3 when we go over it. Okay? And I will just tell you, I'll say this to you. This is, and if it sounds biting or critical, I'm not trying to make it sound so. But a lot of the questions that you're asking, I'm trying to give you something that would help in chapter 3. That if you read chapter 3, it would answer a lot of your questions. All right? All right, then I'm just going to move my way down here, and I'm going to keep looking at the code. All right? All right, so I'm in the button press routine right here. Okay, let's just talk about in English what's going on here. All right? Var number int equals number.text.toInt. In English. I mean, I can write comments for every line that's in here if you want. But in English, what this is saying is what you end up putting in there. That's the text field right there. There's nothing in it. All right? But what that's saying is what you put in there, it's a text field. Get the word? Text field. So it's a string. So what we're saying is whatever value we put in there, grab its text and convert it to an integer and store it into number int. Does that make sense? And you can say, well, yeah, Jeff, but what if you put hello or something like that in there? Well, one of the things that I did when I created it, you may have done this, you may not have. All right? And if you're not looking up on the screen right now, please do. You don't have to look at me, but look at the screen. If you click on here and you go down and you go to your attributes inspector, which I can't show you right now because of the screen that's up, all right, one of the things that's in there is keyboard. And under keyboard, one of the things that's in there, it's either number or number keypad or something like that. That means all you can put in there is numbers. All right? What I really should have done when I first did this, I wanted to put a value there. All right? I wanted to put a value there. And I put the word number, and I thought later when I ran it, it didn't work. Because number was in there, but it wouldn't let me remove it because, why? Because it's expecting numbers. My error checking worked because I put in the number 2 and it said 2 number. And then when I click the button, it says you got to enter a valid number. So what I should have done is stuck a number in there. And then you could have removed it. So you could put a garbage value in there if you want to for right now. That would work. All right, so for instance, 19 is a prime number. So it's hard to see this. So if you put a 19 in there, and you bring the program up and you click the prime button, it should come in here and say 19 is not prime. Does that make sense? And you should be able to then click in here and change it to whatever you want to change it to. All right? But remember, it's going to be very important when you do that. All right? And I'll click on this. All right? So if I click in here, again, that's the text field that I just clicked on. And if I go over, I always forget which one it is. Identity. To the attributes inspector. Come on, help me here. That if I work my way down here, And sometimes when you're looking at this stuff, and you go, it's not there. It is, but you got to drag your way down. I think it's there. It's in the attributes inspector, but we'll find it. Someplace in here, there's a thing for keyboard. And you have to start getting it into your head that if I'm writing an app, and in my app, I'm expecting numbers. Okay, you with me? I've got an app and I'm expecting numbers. You should set your keyboard up to have numbers only. What you want to do is you want to make it as hard as possible for the person to fail who's going to run your app. That should make sense to everybody. I don't want a keyboard where I'm asking the person to enter numbers and have an alphanumeric keyboard come up. Because by default, what's going to come up on there are all the letters first. Then you have to change keyboards to go to numbers. I don't want that. On the other hand, if I've got something where I'm asking for addresses or whatever, yeah, then I'm going to have to do that. But it's possible that you can have different input elements, and each thing that's in there could have a different type of keyboard. So if I've got one for name, I might have an alphanumeric keyboard, an address. All right? But when I go to zip code, I might set it up where I'm not even going to put the dash in the 4 numbers. All right? Then I just make it numeric. And that's the kind of thing you have to start thinking about. Really, to me, when I go out to the App Store and I look at some of the stuff that's out there, you know, it's funny because there's if you've ever done this, if you go out there and you download some of the free apps, there's a reason some of them are free. And that's not a joke. They're just not written very well. But they're kind of cool because a lot of times what happens is somebody creates something, they're proud of it. You know, they've got themselves build an iOS app in 24 hours book. They read it and they build an app and they put it out there. It's free, they're not expecting any money from it, etc. But a lot of times when people do that, they want to see how many people are downloading it. All right. Plus, it's a lot of times that's a good venue or a good avenue for you to start, and especially if you leave an area in there for people to write comments.
Yep.
Hey, I like this, but if you do this, I'd pay for it. Okay. And again, many of the most successful apps are cheap. Flappy Birds was free for a long time, and even when they charged for it, it wasn't very expensive. And I don't know if you know this, but this is the number I've heard at a minimum, even still today. Flappy Birds has...
Angry Birds.
Or, okay, Angry, whatever the hell it is. I don't play it, my wife plays it.
I have a son.
All right, not my wife. I watched my wife play it, and I tried a couple times, and I just am not that dexterous enough to play it. All right, but the point is, there's ads on the page. And from what I heard, the guy who created Angry Birds is making at least 50 grand a day from the ads.
Sure.
That ain't bad. If I was making 50 grand a day, I'd start calling in sick every day for the rest of the semester. Okay. So when we look at what's in here, I'm going to go for 5 minutes. So if somebody can tell me 5 minutes from now, we'll stop and take a break. So again, after we do this, it says if number int not equal nil. Nil basically means the only time that should be nil is if I leave it blank, because it's a numeric keyboard. So the only time that should be nil is if I leave it blank. So ideally, that's going to be 0% of the time. So what I'm telling you is, I'm not going to go down there right now, but if I did, boom, if I came down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that label right here to say you must enter a number. Again, I was working with the first year people yesterday, and I keep saying this, and you've heard me say this before. You can't account for human stupidity. Literally, you know, we were doing the simple miles per gallon program. And we, you know, I said this morning, so we did it, boom, the simple miles per gallon program. And you can put any number in there you want, including negative numbers. Boom. Then I went in there and showed them constants. And we said it has to be, you know, like miles driven has got to be between 0 and 1,000. Okay? And all I did was I put it into a while loop. But if the person keeps typing in their -10, it's going to give them an error and ask them to do it again. If they type in -10, it's going to give an error and it's going to tell them to do it again, right? They've got nothing better to do if they've packed themselves a lunch. They can sit there and type in -10 all day long if they want to. So it's up to me to either let them do that, or after X number of times, tell them they're useless and hopeless.
You're an idiot.
Yeah. And I just decided to write it that way that they can keep entering bad data in. The reason I'm telling you that is if I put nothing in there and I click the button, it's going to say you must enter a number. But if I click the button again without putting anything in, it's going to say you must enter a number. See what I'm saying? It'll keep doing it. If for some reason I want that to happen. All right? And nil, that's not a new word. It's a keyword. It's not a new word. It was also used in Objective-C for pretty much the same thing. All right? So it's been around for a while. Okay. Now, right here it says var unwrapped number equals number int with an exclamation point. Like, what the hell is that? All right. If I want to be using this number int, I have no guarantee once I get in here. All right. It literally should have a value, but it may not. The system, remember, this is a language that tries to protect itself. What I'm doing right here is I'm creating an alias for number int that's called unwrapped number. So I don't have to type that exclamation point right away, or all the time rather. This is a Boolean variable. Remember, if it makes more sense to you, I know Mike had asked this about parentheses and semicolons, etc. I can do this. I can say var is prime, colon, space, bool. I can do that. If that's easier for you to understand, then do it that way. The program shouldn't run any slower. You could make a case and say the program should run faster because the system knows it's not inferring the type. You are explicitly telling it the type. But either way, it should work fine. So then I come in here and there's a couple little cheats and some other stuff that's in here. But we start out by saying if the number, and I'm going to stop in a second, if the number is 1, we're just assuming, okay, 1's not a prime number. Okay, so I don't want to check 1. Okay, so that's that one. All right. And notice here, up here we set is prime to true, correct? Everybody see that? And here we're saying if it's 1, it's false. So when we get down here, notice the if statement that's here. I'll go over this in a second, but notice the if statement. If the number that we put in is not a 2 and it's not a 1, what does that mean? It's 0 or below, right? Or it's above 3, or 3 or above. All right? Why? Because 2, again, it depends on who you ask, but 2 is a prime number. We already set it up to is prime here, so I'm not worried about it. Okay? So let's take a break. We'll come back, and we're going to go through the rest of the code starting in here. All right? Yes, so do you. Yes, but I will put it out there again. Yes.
I think it's in that file on the desktop. There's a file on there.
I know I'm supposed to be.
Where's your Mac?
Oh, that might be this one here. It's like we both wrote the version.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, actual project. So it would be. You come to like that too. You go back on one. I can remember when we did back on March. Prime number. Yeah. See, that's at least the custom stuff. You'll have to change the variable.
do. Okay, that's fine.
Jeff, I have a question real quick.
Yes.
I'm getting an error on mine. I don't understand why.
All right, I will be there literally in just a second.